The People versus David Anthony Burke, a star musician charged with ending the life of 14-year-old Celeste Hernandez Rivas. What's going to be inside the defense playbook? Welcome to the Margaret McLean Show. I'm your courtroom translator, and in this video, I'm going to break down what I anticipate the defense strategy will be. Press that subscribe button because I'll provide you with the latest based on a former prosecutor's perspective. So first of all, here's a quick recap of the case, and then we'll jump right into what I anticipate the defense playbook will be. So last September, the decomposing, dismembered body of 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez was discovered inside 2 cadaver bags stuffed in the front trunk of a Tesla registered to rising celebrity music star David Anthony Burke, who goes by the name D4vd, pronounced David. He's been arrested on charges of M with special circumstances and SA of a child under 14. This case is out of LA. So let's look at this case from a defense attorney's lens. As a prosecutor, that's exactly what I had to do from the very beginning. How will the opposing side attack my case? What are its weaknesses? This is, of course, early on, but in my opinion, the defense team has its work cut out for them. They have to sit through 40 terabytes of discovery, and that's a ton. You need a big team for that. In fact, they'll probably use AI. So who's their team captor, their fearless leader? Well, that's Blair Burke, and she's a celebrity criminal defense partner at Burke Brettler. She has represented high-profile clients, including, Kanye West, Lindsay Lohan, Kiefer Sutherland, Queen Latifah, and Reese Witherspoon. She's a Harvard law grad with over 30 years of experience, and she is a pit bull. But even for a pit bull, it's going to be an uphill battle. David entered a not guilty plea, and of course, his defense team spoke loud and clear in the presser that he's completely innocent, and of course, his family is standing by him. That's got to be tough for the family, too. So, the charges themselves, we'll start with those, are a major hurdle. Burke's team, that's the lawyer's team, may poke holes in the prosecution's case. They may have evidence that creates reasonable doubt. There's always something. I went over the timeline in the last video, which will be part of the prosecution's case. Now, the defense will look for holes in the timeline, and of course, they're going to find something. One thing, though, I'd like to point out right away is that ultimately, in front of a jury, these charges are hard for anyone to swallow. When I prosecuted these types of cases involving child SA, I had the advantage in front of a jury with, when I had these types of charges, I, as a prosecutor, had the advantage because child SA is the most heinous of crimes. And this case, Celeste Rivas Hernandez was only 13 years old, a 7th grader, when the abuse allegedly began at the hands of David. It's having those types of charges is tough. So perhaps, and I've seen this before, the defense is going to have to argue that David had horrific pictures on his phone, he had child pee on his devices, but he didn't commit the crime of murder, of M. So selecting a fair and impartial jury is one of the most important and challenging tasks that the defense will face in this case. I'm sure they will hire a very expensive team of jury consultants. And of course, we are pretty far out from that right now, but these charges are so outrageous, so shocking, society wants to protect children. For example, I'll give you, outside of me prosecuting cases, I was actually called as a juror in a child R case. I had to wait all day in court just to be called, literally from 8 in the morning till almost 5, because my juror number was number 85. When they finally got to me, they had only picked one juror. And I, of course, got up there before the defense and counsel, and I said I could be fair and impartial because I had prosecuted these types of cases. And as a lawyer, I felt that I was able to put my emotions aside and decide the case purely on the facts. The judge agreed with me, and he did not allow the defense to dismiss me for cause. And remember, a for-cause dismissal is unlimited, basically. So the defense had to use one of their peremptory challenges to dismiss me, which they didn't want to do. I also think jurors feel especially sorry for the victims' families in cases like this. Like, what if something like that happened to my child? It's just a horrifying thought. So back to the charges. These are enhanced M charges, alleging special circumstances. So it takes it from M on its own, which you can get anywhere from 25 to life, to special circumstances, which is life without parole, and in this case, the possibility of the death penalty. I think, people have been asking me actually if I think David would be offered any type of plea deal like Brian Koberger was. And I'd have to say no, because it's a bit different from the Brian Koberger case, because Brian Koberger pled guilty to avoid the death penalty. But in California, where this case is, even though the death penalty is on the books, there's been a moratorium and nobody's been executed for 20 years. So I don't even see it as a bargaining chip here. If you listen to the tone of the district attorney in the press conference, he was very confident in his case, and I think simply because of the charges that he has. He knows he has a high-profile case involving a celebrity yet again, and the defense will attack the length of time it took for them to arrest David. I anticipate that, and get him off the streets. The defense will raise the question, hey, this is allegedly a dangerous guy, a pedophile. Well, why didn't you arrest him earlier? Because you had a weak case? I'm actually surprised myself that they didn't arrest David earlier to get him off the streets. And then, on the SA charges, and then bring the murder charges. Because quite frankly, in my opinion, he's a danger to the public as a pedophile. But on the flip side, it certainly wasn't a rush to judgment. So the defense can't really make that argument very well, I don't think. But we shall see. The investigation took a long time, but it is still ongoing. I anticipate the autopsy is going to be an area that the defense will focus on. The cause of death was ruled as multiple penetrating injuries to the torso. Celeste suffered 2 major wounds, one to the upper abdomen that punctured her liver, and another to the left chest that damaged her ribs. The manner of death is classified as a homicide. However, the condition of her remains were very poor. Her body was found dismembered in 2 bags inside the trunk of David's Tesla, and they had been there in the hot summer for possibly weeks on end. There were also fragments of blue plastic material embedded in the cut surfaces where the body had been severed. So the defense is going to jump all over this one as well. Toxicology tests showed presumptive positives for benzos and meth, MDMA, as well as low level of alcohol, although in my opinion, the alcohol may have been due to decomposition. Because of the decomposition, prosecutors are unable to draw definitive conclusions. So for example, there were inconsistent conclusions in the toxicology report that I just told you about. David's legal team can possibly raise the defense that they were using drugs. I could see them saying, hey, she overdosed. David panicked and knew he had to get rid of the body. He may even try to argue that he was so panicked that he was out of his mind. He was so out of his mind. Like, who would stow a dismembered body in their own car for months? And by the way, the trunk of a Tesla is very small. There's no way you could fit a body in there without cutting it up. And that kind of reminds me, this summer, actually not this summer, this winter, we just had a trial of Brian Walsh here in Massachusetts, who at one point was going to raise the defense that his wife simply died in their bed. He panicked and then felt the need to get rid of her body by dismembering her and throwing her remains away in trash bags. He ended up not taking the stand to tell that story, but either way, the jury convicted him of M, and he's behind bars, life without parole. So that excuse of panicking didn't work or would never work for Brian Walsh. So we'll see what happens here if they bring it. The defense is also going to be looking at other explanations for the cause of death and manner of death. They're going to have to tear apart the prosecution's case by pointing out that the evidence is too degraded. It's unreliable. The decomposed condition of Celeste's body made it very difficult for the medical examiner to determine cause of death. They identified her through dental records and, of course, her tattoo, which matched David's. Even the police admit to that in the press conference. So I predict that the defense will argue that other people had access to that Tesla and David was set up. They may argue that this was all part of a conspiracy and cover-up, that David was framed. And for example, who had the motive and opportunity? They'll scrutinize his friends, entourage, and associates. Take streamer Neil Langston, for example. They were very close friends, and there's speculation that he may have taken the fifth before the investigative grand jury, so we'll have to wait and see on that. One of the reasons why the district attorney's office held several investigative grand juries, by the way, was to lock witness testimony in. I wouldn't be surprised if the district attorney's office flipped some of David's friends and members of his inner circle, so if witnesses try to change their story at trial, they can be charged with perjury. On a legal note, whenever a witness testifies before the secret grand jury, defense counsel is not present. However, a grand jury transcript is created, and those transcripts are turned over to the defense by the prosecution. They still remain sealed. However, when those witnesses are called to testify at trial, and if they change their story, they can be impeached through the grand jury transcript. So the cross-examination, for example, from the defense would go like this. Well, sir, you said this before the grand jury, and what? Now you're changing your story? How can we believe you? How is this jury going to believe that? Of course, Blair Burke will do a much better job. So another issue is, did David act alone? So the press asked about this during the press conference, and I do want to play a little bit of the initial press conference to show you again. I want to emphasize what a hurdle the defense team has just by virtue of these charges alone. So let me switch that on. Just give me 1 minute here, and we will check that out. Okay. All right, 1 second. I'm getting it ready. And I gotta make it big.
He said, again, there are 3 sets of charges that have been brought. The first-degree murder with special circumstances, and again, special circumstances are lying in wait. That Celeste went to Mr. Burke's home on the night of April 23rd, 2025, as alleged in the complaint, at his invitation. And again, was not heard from again. The second is a special circumstance being that this murder was committed for financial gain. As the evidence will show in court, the financial gain was for Mr. Burke to maintain his very lucrative musical career that Celeste was threatening on that particular night. The third charge, in addition to lying in wait and for financial gain, is murdering a witness to an investigation. In this particular case, as the evidence will come out in court, the witness to the investigation was Celeste. And the investigation was into the lewd and lascivious sexual acts committed by Mr. Burke that is the subject of count 2 of this complaint with Celeste while she was under 14 years old. I had the chance to meet with some of the family members of Celeste, and their grief is incalculable as to what happened to their daughter. What they have demanded, what we have assured them that the district attorney's office working with LAPD would give them is the proof beyond.
I want to go ahead a little bit and show you part of what the police said, and you can tell in this part that they acknowledge that the autopsy findings were tough, and they have to deal with that. So one second, let me get to it. It's right around here.
From that moment forward, our investigators faced an extraordinary, difficult, and complex case. The condition of her remains delayed the medical examiner's ability to be able to determine cause of death. The substantial amount of time that passed between her death and the deceased had degraded or disappeared. And as detectives worked to uncover the truth, they also had to sift through and debunk a great deal of false information circulating publicly. These challenges were real, and they required patience, precision, and an unwavering commitment to the facts. Despite these obstacles, and despite intense public pressure, our Robbery Homicide Division detectives remained steadfast in their duties. They recovered and analyzed a substantial amount of digital and forensic evidence. They stayed focused, disciplined, and committed to uncovering the truth. Their work, in close collaboration with the District Attorney's Office, has brought us to this moment today. I want to thank the District Attorney and his team, as always, for their partnership. This case demanded coordination, persistence.
Okay, we don't need to listen to that. But what I'd also like to do is fast forward. So one of the things that they're doing here is they want to show that the police and the DA's office is united. So they don't want anybody to be thinking that behind the scenes, the reason there was so much delay was infighting between the two. So right now, I am going to just fast forward to some of the questions. And this, again, the questions that the press raise are the very questions that Blair Burke and her team of defense attorneys are going to raise as well. So let's go there. And bear with me, it's right around here where they get the questions.
Or her remains. Why has it taken so long for an arrest to be made?
I think the police chief got it right, that in a situation where you don't have an eyewitness account, or we can't point to a video that shows the killer killing someone, you have to go through the very rigorous and thorough investigation to look at all the digital and forensic evidence. You have to speak with witnesses, often who are cooperative and some who are not cooperative, in order to obtain all the information necessary to decide who did what, when, how, and what their mental state was at the time. That is what we've been doing over the last, between September 8th, roughly, and today when we bring these charges on April 20th. So again, it's a type of case that you want to make sure you get maximum information. And by the way, if there's anyone out there that has material information about this particular murder or any other actions taken by Mr. Burke, please come forward to the Los Angeles Police Department, come forward to the LA County DA's office. and report that information.
Mr. Hoffman, there are other people who are aware of this relationship. Is it possible that you will be arresting other people within his circle, and did he act alone in this death?
Again, with respect to whether or not there's any other individuals or we're going to take any other actions, you will know about them if we do, but at this point I'm not commenting.
Do you believe that you know how she was killed, beyond it being homicide? The actual cause of death?
The coroner's report will be released shortly. Because it is not currently released, I'm not going to be commenting.
But was it determined, not that, if you won't say what it was, but has it been determined how she was killed, beyond it being homicide?
The coroner has made a determination on how Celeste died, and at the point that the coroner's report becomes public, we'll be able to comment on it.
Was there a specific breakthrough last week? Is there physical evidence that ties David to this murder?
There is physical evidence and there is forensic and digital evidence that we intend to present in court to prove these charges beyond a reasonable doubt.
Only a couple more questions.
Yes.
Your investigation, and just to his question, are you able to tell us exactly what the smoking gun is? And also, if you can address the issue of his visit to Santa Barbara, and that, how does it connect with the murder?
So with respect to the actual details of the evidence we're going to be presenting in court, I'm not going to do that today. As far as the concept of a smoking gun, the smoking gun is the totality of the evidence that we're going to bring to prove any case, whether it's this case or any case, beyond a reasonable doubt.
Is there any evidence that you've used other underage girls that being investigated?
An investigation is ongoing. If information comes forward on any, with respect to any additional crimes, we will certainly investigate it.
One more
Yes.
question. One more.
There's been so much discussion about the difficulties in this case, and Chief talked about it as well. What makes you confident you can prove these elements?
What makes us confident is the totality of the evidence that has been obtained by the LAPD robbery homicide, by the work that the district attorney's office has done, that has led us to the point where we believe we can prove each and every one of these three charges and the special circumstances and the special allegation beyond a reasonable doubt.
Thank you, everybody. We are going to give you an update on this case here in just a minute. Just to give you an idea of what's going to happen here. We've got the Los Angeles County District Attorney, Nathan
Let
Hoff.
me turn that off. There we go. So anyway, that was quite interesting. And again, obviously it's a circumstantial case, and the defense attorneys are going to find reasonable doubt. And what I also wanted to do, and I failed to do before, was I want to show you a picture of the attorney. That's Blair Burke. Like I said, she is one heck of an amazing attorney. I don't know why there's something yellow in the middle there, but anyway, that's what she looks like. I'm sure you'll be seeing quite a bit of her going forward. So, in the meantime, of course, I think that defense attorneys, I want to go back to the idea of the long police investigation. And of course, they're going to attack the police. That's one of what they always do. And right away, the press, you just heard them, was questioning the length of the investigation, which was over 7 months. And that's really all I have for now. I appreciate all your comments, so keep them coming. And thank you for watching The Margaret McLean Show. Have a good night.